Delegations from Colombia's government and the National Liberation Army signed an agreement reinstalling the negotiating table in the framework of the re-establishment of peace talks. Ugandan health facilities in Malu's sub-county struggle with rising number of Ebola patients. UN experts say human rights of people of African descent is of urgent concern. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The delegations of the government of Colombia and the National Liberation Army signed an agreement reinstalling the dialogue table. During the meeting, the parties announced the date of re-establishment of the dialogue table, which had been reached before the abrupt rupture, which will lead to the restoration of the talk process as of November. The statement recalled that both for the government of President Gustavo Petro and for the insurgent group, the participation of society in this effort to achieve peace is essential, and they explained that they will look for ways to make this participation possible.
We think that in this opportunity, the new political circumstances in Colombia have made it possible to restart negotiations. So the confidence we have now is that there is a change in the peace policy that Colombia once had, and it's likely that the agreements we are reaching in the construction process will also open up other opportunities.
In his speech, the High Commissioner for Peace for the government of Colombia, Danilo Ruedas, emphasized that the peace process is based on a condition of respect and that the protocols subscribed by the Colombian government for a good agreement between both parties are being complied with.
This dialogue is based on the condition of respect for the history and memory of an organization, and also based on respect for the 1991's Constitution and all that is enshrined therein in relation to the changes and the rights of the citizens of Colombia. The conditions are there. That is the framework of our dialogue, transparency. Whatever is agreed upon is between the parties, and what is agreed upon is complied with. We have complied with the protocols, with the responsibilities that the government, the Colombian state, subscribed to, and we are in that phase.
Ruedas also stressed that the central point of this peace dialogue with the National Liberation Army is the participation of Colombian society.
The central point of this dialogue is the participation of Colombian society. With it, we build the changes that Colombia needs, and that is a substantial point of agreement in this process. And this means, in addition to humanitarian measures, issues that lead to avoid again the suffering of many Colombian families.
On Tuesday, a new massacre in Cali, Colombia left 4 dead and 3 injured people, according to local authorities. Cali's police reported that hitmen heavily armored arrived walking to Siloes neighborhood and opened fire against 7 people who were there. The identity of victims is still unknown, but the mayor of the zone, Jorge Iván Ospina, said that one of them was an old person. Also, he revealed that the 4 victims were men and the 2 injured are women. The incident is probably related with local drug trafficking in the area, explained Ospina. This massacre is the 83rd registered in 2022 in Colombia. Since President Gustavo Petro took power this month, has been the less deadly. In Brazil, first-round candidate Ciro Gomes backed Lula in Brazil's runoff. Centre-left candidate Ciro Gomes announces he will reluctantly follow his Democratic Labour Party's decision to endorse leftist Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in the October 30th presidential runoff as a last resort. Gomes finished with 3% of the vote in the first round as Lula and incumbent Jair Bolsonaro head to a runoff election. To prevail in Brazil's tighter than expected presidential runoff, leftist veteran da Silva will have to strike alliances with centrists.
I hope that this decision will help to temporarily oxygenate our democracy, but if there is not effective search for new air, for new instruments, we will be at the mercy of a fragile and precarious artificial respirator.
In El Salvador, the auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of San Salvador, Gregorio Rosa Chavez, announced his resignation, which was accepted by Pope Francis. The information was issued by the press office of the Holy See. Rosa Chavez's resignation comes 2 weeks after his superior Archbishop Jose Luis Escobar Alas expressed his support for the President of the nation, Nayib Bukele, and also expressed his support for his re-election. The bishop was a critic of the government and for that reason was attacked publicly. Gregorio Rosa Chavez was known for his defense of the rights of Salvadorans. The National Electoral Council, in accordance with the provisions of Article 28, Paragraph C and 35, Paragraph A of the Electoral Law, validated its results both in Cuba and abroad. The process began with a basic list of 8,447,467 voters, but eventually the list went up to 8,457,978 voters, of whom 6,269,427 exercised their right to vote, representing 74.12% of the voters who went to the polls. Blank ballots accounted for 3.22% and canceled ballots for 2.51% of the total number. 5,909,385 ballots deposited in the ballot boxes were declared valid, which represents 94.25%. 3,950,288 voters voted yes, which represents 66.85% of the total number of valid ballots. 1,959,097 voters voted no, which represents 33.15%. The National Electoral Council ratifies its recognition to all the participants for the work carried out, and especially to the electoral authorities and the people. We're going to take a short break, but first remember you can now follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Tuesday, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea fired a ballistic missile that flew over northern Japan before falling into the Pacific Ocean, in the first such incident since 2017 that also marks the longest distance traveled to date by a North Korean projectile. The latest North Korean test triggered the activation of the civil alert system in several Japanese locations where the population was advised to seek shelter. This is the fifth missile launched by Pyongyang in the last 10 days, and a new step in the escalation that has coincided with the joint military maneuvers of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. The missile fired from North Korea's Yagan province in the north of the country at around 7:23 a.m. local time on Tuesday reached a maximum altitude of 940 kilometers and traveled a total distance of 4,500 kilometers before falling into Pacific waters, according to the South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff. After the Democratic People's Republic of Korea launched a ballistic missile over Japanese territory on Tuesday, Japanese Defense Minister Yasukazu Hamada said that it could have had an intermediate or longer range.
Given the fact that it flew as high as 10,000 kilometers and traveled around 4,600 kilometers, it is believed to have a range of those of IRBM, intermediate range ballistic missiles, or longer. This could be the same as the Hwasong-12 missile that North has fired 4 times already in the past.
Hamada also expressed his rejection to the North Korean actions, which he considered absolutely inadmissible.
No matter what the intentions are, North Korea's repeated ballistic missile launches are absolutely impermissible, and we cannot overlook its advancing missile technology.
On Tuesday, a trio of physicists were awarded the Nobel Prize for Quantum Mechanics work. The physicists won the Nobel Prize for discoveries in the field of quantum mechanics that have paved the way for quantum computers, networks, and secure encrypted communication. Alain Aspect from France and John Closer of the United States and Austria's Anton Seilinger were honored for experiments with entangled photons, establishing the violation of Bell's inequalities and pioneering quantum information science, the jury said. Each scientist conducted groundbreaking experiments using entangled quantum states, where two particles behave like a single unit when they are separated, according to the committee, adding that the results have cleared the way for new technology based upon quantum information.
This prize is an encouragement to young people, and I would mention here that the prize would not be possible without more than 100 young people who worked with me over the years and made all this possible, because I alone could not have achieved this. That is quite clear.
In Russia, the Senate ratified on Tuesday the documents on the incorporation of the Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia regions into the Russian Federation. The approval of the laws ratifying the accession treaties was voted unanimously by the 153 members of the Council of the Federation, the upper house of the Russian Parliament. At Tuesday's session, the chairwoman of the Senate, Valentina Matvienko, stressed that during the referendums, the people of these four territories clearly expressed their position by voting for the return to their true great homeland, Russia. The State Duma, the lower legislative chamber, held a similar vote on Monday, in which all the deputies ratified the accession treaties. Let's review some points of what the law of incorporation to the Russian Federation imply. According to the law, residents of the new constituencies are recognized as Russian citizens as of September 30th, the day the regions join Russia, but they have 1 month to refuse such status. Russian citizens of the four regions will be guaranteed the right to work. Documents on their education and marital status will be recognized, as well as on their length of service and the right to obtain pensions and social and medical assistance. International agreements specify that the borders of the four regions with other countries shall be considered state borders of Russia. The Russian ruble will become the only currency used in the four regions on January 1st, 2023, but the use of the Ukrainian hryvnia will be allowed until the end of 2022. And we have more news coming up after a financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Tuesday, several Ugandan health facilities in Madudu sub-county are struggling with management of Ebola patients. The daily community deaths and alerts of suspected Ebola cases have left responders stressed. The Ebola virus has so far been confirmed in over 4 districts. ELN said this will require more support to the responders in order to manage the cases. According to the Ministry of Health, at least 9 people succumbed to the virus, including 1 doctor, and a total of 43 cumulative confirmed cases. Uganda remains on high alert as there have been no movement restrictions from the affected districts.
When Ebola came, we had the COVID pandemic before, and then so many other disasters that we are responding to as the Uganda Red Cross. So looking at the demands and the expectations from the community, it's really higher than where our capacities can accommodate at the moment. While we look at securing our own health through giving ourselves more PPE and so many other safety measures, we equally have to support the communities, and they are looking to us for an option.
Demonstrators took to the streets in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's capital, to show their frustration with the arrival of the delegation of Economic Community of West African States, which is visiting the capital and must exchange with the new authorities. Following the coup that overthrew Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba on Friday, the country is destabilized and people are angry. Most of them do not understand why an organization related with political and economic issues are interested in the elections and not in the welfare of the people.
When ECOWAS arrives in a country, it is to talk about the electoral calendar. We don't know if we are holding elections for the trees, the mountains, the forests, or what. If elections are held for the people and the people are in difficulty, that should be their first concern.
A group of United Nations experts in Geneva, Switzerland, said on Monday that the human rights of people of African descent is of urgent concern as they continue to face systemic racial discrimination in all walks of life.
Made repeated calls to member states to take into account the multiple interconnected and compounding forms of discrimination which are faced by people of African descent in their interactions with law enforcement and other authorities, resulting from nationality, migration status, gender, color, age, religion, disability, socioeconomic, and other status. States should translate their commitments under international human rights law into accountability and redress, and plans of action into tangible improvements in the lived situation of people of African descent.
On Tuesday, the Cuban artist Maisel Lopez printed his art in Doha, capital of Qatar, to place Cuba on the soccer world map of Qatar 2022. His Colossus, a series of murals inspired by childhood, broke down the barriers of distance and found space on Arab soil to give a magical and unusual touch to the atmosphere prior to the expected sporting event. The project came to life thanks to the cultural exchange between the two territories. He said on Facebook before explaining that his idea was selected among several proposals from creators on the island. The 22nd Men's World Cup will take place between November 20th and December 18th in 8 stadiums, with the presence of 32 national teams and the French team ready to revalidate the crown won in the Russian 2018 tournament.
On this occasion, the Cultural Center of Qatar has invited me here to Doha to make one of my murals in relation to the World Cup, which will be held soon here, sponsored by the Ministry of Culture and the National Council of Fine Arts. It was possible this invitation to do this piece is a great honor for me as an artist and a great opportunity to show my art and to strengthen relations between Cuba and Qatar.
We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.